was it for you switching into that producer role? How did that kind of come about? What were those conversations with Impact?
It was very gradual. And I think a lot of people, I have everything to owe, really. I mean, if I was going to pick one person on this earth, and Christy Hemme and I have talked about it, and Lita and everyone, I always talk about the fact that, Jeff Jarrett, back in 2007, when there was no women's wrestling really being put on any type of platform, gave us that opportunity. And since then, I think, he's always believed in me. And pretty much near the end, once I knew I was going to retire, which was over the course of a couple of years, to be honest, once you start becoming a leader in the locker room, I think the girls, they started coming to me and asking me, my feedback and all those things. And long story short, eventually is just like, I knew I wanted to continue on in this business. I wanted to be able to, I loved putting matches together. That's what I feel like I'm really good at. And so I just asked Jeff, I said, do you mind, I want to become a producer. Oh, sorry, my drink just popped. And I said, I want to become a producer. And he was like, yeah, okay. And I said, okay, can I please just shadow one of the producers that is there now? And he's like, yeah. And then so the first pay-per-view, the first time I was a producer, he threw me on a live pay-per-view.
Oh my God, of course. Classic. There you go.
Oh, I guess there's no shadowing going on. So that was fun. But you know what? As well as most people do, you learn the fastest when you're thrown into things, and maybe you might not do the best job, but I'm okay with making mistakes if I'm learning right along the way. So
what kind of things have you been learning along the way? I mean, what was that like jumping into, what was the match that you produced?
Oh, I don't even remember now. I should know those things. My memory.
Honestly, it all kind of blends together. I'm brutal with that. When I have to go back and look up different wrestling things, like my husband or like so many different dudes, I don't know if this is like a male versus female thing, but like, I don't remember shit.
Yeah.
I don't remember dates. I don't remember buildings. I don't remember anything like that. Where like my husband will rattle stuff off. He's like my own Wikipedia. It's nuts.
I think there's certain people in the business who are just really good at that. And then I'll ask them, I'm like, hey, remember when did I debut? And when was this? And I'll ask fans sometimes, but, and then, so I just kind of got thrown into it and I don't remember the match. And honestly, I just felt like, even though I knew wrestling as a wrestler, there's so many different points of view and roles that make this whole, the show great, pretty much. So it was almost like having background education, but really starting from the beginning again. And I always talk about the fact that even in wrestling as a talent, it was always this battle of trying to prove that we were good enough, trying to prove that the women could hold their own or draw or whatever it may be. And then as a producer, it just started all over again. I don't think it ever really ended. It was it's always a constant battle.
It's crazy how it's like that. It's true. I mean, obviously, like my perspective is different from what your perspective is for me, like coming in and hosting shows and doing interviews and just understanding the wrestling business from that perspective. Then I jump on commentary and it's like, oh my God, now I've got to think about it in so many different ways of like, how do you talk about something during a heat spot? How do you talk about something during these moments? Like all of those things that my brain didn't work like that. I had to try to like train my brain to think in a different way.
Yeah. And you really had people coming in your ear too, I'm sure.
Oh my God. Yeah. My head was like spinning. I'm like, oh my God, what's happening? What am I doing? It's nuts.
I would never want to do commentary. Bless you guys. I have all the respect in the world because I just think it would be a very hard job. It is
a very hard job. Actually, yes, I did it. I didn't love it. But what I will say is I thought Beth Phoenix was so good at it. I thought she crushed on NXT. So definitely a little bit sad to see her step away from the mic at NXT because
what is Beth not good at?
What is Beth not good at? Honestly.
Great leader, great wrestler, great cook, great mom, great wife.
She does it all. She's like knitting blankets for everybody and like writing, puts out a album. Like what?
Oh,
Who is
I
this woman?
know. And she, and her and I started off in the business together. It was her, well, it was me and Tracy, and then Beth joined. And so us three were kind of married on the indies for a long time. So I always tell this story about how it was like Tracy who got her tryout first. And then me and Beth came in and had the tryout, and all three of us had it. And it was weird because then I got signed, Tracy went to TNA, and then Beth went on that path of going to OVW and never stopping, never quitting, and getting that job. And now she's, look at her, Hall of Fame,
Look at her
everything
go.
she ever wanted to accomplish. But I knew she always had that in her.
Yeah,
right?
she definitely has that drive. She is like one of those people that is like Hall of Famer, done it all, but you can see she's always a student. She is like always learning, always trying. Like I see her like writing down notes and stuff. Like she's got her finger on the pulse. But what I find really cool too about you and Beth, you guys both have pretty interesting Molly Holly stories. Molly Holly really helped both of you guys get in the business, right?
Yeah, Molly, we're there at the same time. And Molly, listen, especially back then, I think the wrestling business has evolved to a better place in terms of, I would say back then it seemed more cutthroat in the sense of there weren't as many wrestling companies around. It was harder to get a job. You didn't get hired at that time if you didn't have any wrestling experience. And so at that time, it was very rare to find someone, just a great human being, who was like, saw other girls and wanted to genuinely help them out. And in hindsight, now looking back, I'm so grateful. I'm so grateful that I got to meet her, that I was in the right place at the right time, and that I got to develop a friendship with her, and that I got to work with her. I mean, I was the woman I watched and I was like, oh my God, she's amazing. And look at the way she moves. And she turned into my hero pretty much, that's why I became obsessed with the women's division back then. I was like, Molly just moves like so naturally and graceful. And that's what I love. That's my love in wrestling, is the wrestling part of it, right? So yeah.
And Molly had like encouraged you to like send in some tapes or something. What is the story there?
She was like, so Jason Sensation, who used to be part of WWF way back in the day, some people might know him, but he did these impersonations. And so he was in
love a good impression.
Yeah, Memphis Pro Wrestling, the developmental in Memphis. Mm-hmm. And so he knew Molly from there. So we were at a fan access at Mania. My wrestling school had a table. Beth and I were at this table handing out flyers for the wrestling show. And we were going through the Divas magazine. Back then there was these Diva magazines where they sold fabulously. They should be doing that, by the way.
Get those fancy
go on
photos.
Vacation. The girls would go on vacation.
I always heard about that. Yeah,
they were fun. They're tiring, but they were fun, and they were a bonding experience, which was amazing. And then so I was going through, and I'm like, oh my God, look at Molly. I just love her. Right? But like a huge mark. And then Jason's like, oh, I know her. Do you want me to call her right now? And I said, oh my God, really? So he calls her up. And of course, the matches were going on at Fan Access. She goes, okay, I'll meet you there's matches going on. I'll meet you there. I'm going to be in disguise. And she put on a wig and everything.
No.
And then she came over and met me, and she was super nice. Everything you would ever want in a first meeting with someone that was like your hero. And then right away, she just said, oh, you have a very unique look. We don't have anyone that looks like you. They didn't have any Asian women back then. And she's like, give me back then it was VHS. Give me your video and your pictures and I'll send it in. And at that time, WCW was being bought by WWF. And she said, just hang on a little bit because there's a lot of stuff going on. And then I got a phone call like 2 months later, got a tryout, and I got signed that day. I just had a very lucky day, like a perfect tryout match. I was put with Nydia, and we just had amazing chemistry. It was amazing.
Well, bless her sweet little heart. I mean, Molly Holly just getting you in there, getting Beth in there. Yeah, you're right. I mean, I really think, and like, not that I know, but like you hear the stories from then of like, it was more cutthroat. People might not have been so open to maybe extending that olive branch to try to bring in some hot new young competition.
Yeah, it happens all the time, at least in Impact. The girls I mean, they are very, if a girl tries out, we had that a couple of times where they're just like, we want her in our locker room and we want her to be part of this division. And I mean, we never heard that back then.
Yeah.
It was like, there's
Yeah,
a new girl
right?
coming in to take maybe your place, right? So now
Yeah.
it's seen as a very, I think it's different. Of course, everybody wants to be used and um, have their spot, but I guess in our company too, as well, they don't feel as threatened to lose their spot, I think.
Right. Yeah.
Mhm.
I mean, there's definitely a lot more places to land and people can have
Yeah.
a little bit more longevity. It's not just 30-second matches on TV anymore. Thank
Yeah.
God.
Thank God.